Turn to Liam Byrne. Liam, good morning. I mean,
Morning.
the government's fiscal inheritance was no doubt very tough. It's also an era of very high geopolitical instability. But right now, if you look at what the Bank of England was saying, the outlook's pretty dire, isn't it?
Well, it is definitely time for the jump leads. And I think what you can see from the business community, certainly what we found from the business community, is that they can now appreciate the mood music coming from government, but they definitely need to see some more lyrics now. And so the report we're publishing brings together what we've heard from the business community over the last sort of 2 or 3 months. And there are some really big things that stand out. So the need for a really ambitious reset for Europe, leaning in to trying to fix some of the hit that Brexit has had to our economy. The industrial strategy that is coming soon is a big moment to change the way that government and the state works. It's about £13 billion worth of investment attached to that. Government probably needs to rethink whether some of that money should go in through tax incentives rather than capital spending. But, the big thing that business has told us about is the difficulty getting the right workers. And so things like reform of the apprenticeship levy, which is about £4 billion worth of spending, but not much of it gets reinvested back into training. Super important. Lots of frustrations around availability for finance to scale up. And then you've got all the good stuff around planning and infrastructure, but that does take a little bit more time to come through. And so if you take a step back and think about what that means, well, if the government pushes ahead with those things, it basically increases the productive capacity of the economy. And that is what we need for the Bank of England to gain confidence to cut interest rates further. And that could be the big stimulus for demand.
I totally understand that your report this week, having spoken to so many businesses, is about looking forward. But it is worth just taking a moment, isn't it, Liam, to think that of the almost 2 lost decades. If you think about some of these big infrastructure projects which Rachel Reeves has talked about, Heathrow third runway first mooted in 2003. The Lower Thames crossing first talked about in 1989. You look at HS2, you look at Sizewell C, you look at the Oxford-Cambridge Arc and expanding that, first talked of over 15 years ago. It does feel like some of the things that are happening now, which may pay back in 10 years, really ought to have happened 20 odd years ago, because if that had happened, we'd be feeling the benefits now at last.
I know, but what are you going to do? I mean, the past is the past and we are where we are. And what business community does need is for us to put forward a plan that's actually going to help in the here and now. So as I say, the language and the plans and the ambitions on infrastructure and planning, that is just so important. And it's not just the big infrastructure, remember. In swathes of the country, it's impossible to get a 5G connection. That's got a really big impact on the kind of productivity enhancements business can make if they can't actually get a reliable signal. So there are lots of bits of the infrastructure that are not working at the moment. But as I say, what we now need is a plan for growth this year, next year, and the year after. Because if the Prime Minister is going to hit his target for becoming the fastest growing economy in the G7, well, the path to that ambition has just got a heck of a lot steeper. It's obviously now a much more complicated world, lots more policy uncertainty. Now President Trump is in the White House. But we actually think that just listening to the business community and what their advice is for the immediate priorities would go an awful long way.
And do you think it's
a lot of common sense stuff that's possible now?
Do you think it's a failure, given all that, the availability of all that? Do you think it's a failure of imagination or policy to only have one big fiscal event, the budget, and wait for that long? Why not have 2?
Well, I think you do need to give the business community certainty. I mean, when we ask the business community what are the things that they're most happy about, what are they most confident about for the next sort of 2 or 3 years, you get lots of language about digital transition and the green transition, but actually what business really wants is policy stability and planning certainty. After all of the kind of austerity, Brexit and chaos of the last 10 to 15 years, the ABC of British politics, that stability that comes with a large parliamentary majority is really something to be prized. And in a world where there is such policy uncertainty, actually Britain could become a safe haven. And so, making sure that we are just pressing ahead with the things that we can see. The trade deal's a good example. A really ambitious reset on Europe would go a long way.
Yeah.
If you then fast track the free trade deals with India, Switzerland and the Gulf, Britain really could become a hub of international investment, because we've got to lean into the political stability that we've got in this country.
I'm sure people will be looking at a report very closely this week. Liam Byrne, Labour MP, Chair of the Business and Trade Committee. Thank you.